The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky, each one a tiny point of cold light in the vast emptiness. Captain Elias Rourke sat in the cockpit of his small cargo ship, the Aurora's Edge, staring at the blinking console before him. His ship had served him well for years, but the engines were now acting up. Without a specific spare part, he risked being stranded in the void. The coordinates led him to an old ship, long abandoned and drifting quietly near the edge of the Hestia belt. Years ago, the vessel had been his own cargo ship before he had moved on to newer assignments. He had left it behind when the warp drive failed, leaving it stuck in deep space. Now, he needed one of its spare components, a small, simple piece, but crucial to his survival. Elias activated the docking clamps, hearing the familiar metallic hum echo through the void. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing the dim interior of the abandoned ship. Dust floated lazily in the narrow corridors, illuminated by the pale light from his flashlight. The place smelled faintly metallic, tinged with the stale scent of long unused machinery. "Just grab the part and get out," he muttered to himself. Nothing complicated. The first few corridors were empty. Broken panels hung from the walls, and some wires dangled loosely, swaying slightly in the low gravity. Elias moved carefully, listening for any sound. His footsteps echoed faintly against the metal floors, each one reminding him of the solitude of space. He remembered how he used to run repairs here, walking these same halls, fixing engines, and rerouting circuits. Then he noticed something odd. A small pile of neatly stacked supplies sat in one corner, a ration pack, some containers of purified water, and a few tools that didn't belong to him. Elias frowned. He had left this ship abandoned. No one should have been here. His instincts told him to be cautious. Slowly, he moved deeper into the ship, flashlight scanning the walls. The markings on the metal were strange, almost decorative, etched into the surface in intricate patterns. Elias crouched to examine them. They weren't human in origin. The lines and curves seemed deliberate, but entirely foreign. "That's new," he whispered, running a gloved finger along the etchings. "Who's been here?" Before he could take another step, a sudden movement caught his eye. From the corner of his vision, a figure darted across the corridor. Elias froze. It was a woman, but not like any human woman he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly, like liquid silver in the dim light. She had long, flowing hair that seemed to glow slightly in the dark. Her eyes were large and luminous, reflecting the light in strange colors. She paused abruptly, staring at him with wide, fearful eyes. Elias held up his hand slowly. "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you," he said in a calm voice, careful not to startle her further. The alien woman flinched, retreating backward. She raised her hands in what seemed like a defensive gesture, her body tense. Elias noticed the way she moved, graceful, fluid, yet alert, as if she had been hiding in these corridors for a long time. I just need a spare part," he added, trying to sound reassuring. "I'm the original owner of this ship. I don't mean any harm." The alien's eyes flicked to him, then away, scanning the hallway. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and she seemed ready to flee. Elias realized she had been living here, alone, for some time. "Okay, slow down," he said softly, lowering his voice. "I just want to fix my ship and leave. I won't hurt you. I promise." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, cautiously, the alien stepped forward a few paces, her movements careful and measured. Elias noticed her hands were delicate but strong, with long fingers that hinted at dexterity. She tilted her head, studying him. Her eyes seemed to convey intelligence, curiosity, and fear all at once. Elias's mind raced. He had dealt with many strange species in his years of traveling the stars, but none like her. He realized he would have to be careful. Any sudden move, any loud noise, might scare her away or worse, provoke a defensive reaction. "Name's Elias," he said. "Captain Elias Rourke. What's yours?" The alien hesitated. Then, in a voice that was soft and musical, She said a single word. Lyra. Elias blinked. Lyra. All right. Can you understand me? Lyra tilted her head again, then spoke a few words in her melodic language. The sounds were beautiful, but unintelligible. Elias activated his universal comm device, pointing it toward her. The small screen translated her words into broken but understandable English. I am afraid. You are human? Yes, Elias replied slowly. I'm human. I'm just here for a spare part. I didn't know anyone else was living here. Lyra's eyes widened, and she took a cautious step back. Living here, alone, for long time. The device translated her words. Her voice trembled slightly. Elias nodded. I can see that. You must have been hiding for a while. But I'm not a threat. The alien studied him for a long moment, then moved aside slightly, allowing him to continue down the corridor. Elias noticed her eyes flicking to every corner, every shadow, as if expecting danger to emerge at any moment. It was clear she had been living in fear. As he moved deeper into the ship, he saw more signs of her presence. Small makeshift beds had been constructed from storage containers and blankets. Walls were decorated with markings and symbols. There were even small drawings of stars and ships, carefully etched into panels. Elias felt a pang of guilt. He had abandoned this ship, without realizing someone else might have found refuge here. Lyra, you've been alone here all this time? He asked gently. She nodded, her eyes downcast. The translation device captured her quiet words. Yes. They attacked. My home. Destroyed. I ran. Hiding. Elias's heart sank. He had heard stories of violent conflicts in distant systems, but seeing the fear and loneliness in Lyra's eyes made it real. He wanted to comfort her, but he knew he had to be careful. Trust could not be forced. Okay, he said finally. We'll figure this out. I just need to find the part, and then we can talk. Maybe I can help you. Lyra's eyes flicked up, curious but still wary. She stepped forward, keeping a safe distance. Elias realized that even in her fear, there was a hint of hope. The corridors grew darker as they approached the engine room. Elias moved carefully, checking each panel and junction. Lyra followed silently, occasionally pointing out hidden compartments and obstacles he might have missed. It became clear that she knew this ship intimately, its every corner, every maintenance hatch, every secret passage. Impressive, Elias said, impressed by her knowledge. You've made this place livable. Lyra's lips curved slightly, almost a smile, but it quickly faded. The memory of her past fear lingered in her eyes. Elias understood. Survival had required vigilance, and trust was not easily given. Finally, they reached the engine room. The massive warp core loomed before them, dark and silent. Elias examined the panels, scanning for the part he needed. As he worked, Lyra watched closely, fascinated by the tools and machines he used. She had survived through clever improvisation. But this technology was different human technology. Precise and intricate. This is the part I need, Elias said, pointing to a small component near the back of the engine. Once I have this, my ship will be safe again. Lyra tilted her head, then stepped forward cautiously. She extended a hand toward the engine, as if wanting to help. Elias hesitated, then nodded. All right. Careful. But yes. You can help. Together, they worked in silence. Elias guided her hands, showing her how to handle the delicate machinery. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a fragile trust forming in the quiet hum of the abandoned ship. As he finally secured the part, Elias looked at Lyra. You've been through a lot. But maybe we can find a way to make this easier. For both of us. Find less. Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time since he had arrived, there was no fear, only cautious curiosity. She had been alone for so long, hiding from the dangers of the galaxy. Now, for the first time, she saw a human not as a threat, but as a potential ally. The stars outside continued to shine, indifferent to the lives and struggles inside the ship. But inside the corridors of the abandoned vessel, a new connection had begun, one that would shape not only Elias's journey but Lyra's as well. And as they prepared to leave the engine room, neither of them knew that this unexpected encounter was only the beginning of an adventure that would test their courage, their intelligence, and their ability to trust across worlds. The abandoned ship felt alive in a strange way. The metal walls hummed faintly, echoing the soft steps of Elias and Lyra as they moved carefully through the corridors. Outside, the void of space stretched endlessly. But inside the ship, a fragile connection was forming between human and alien. Elias carried the spare part in his hands, examining it carefully. It was a small but crucial component, a piece of human engineering that had kept his ship running for years. He had thought this retrieval would be simple. He had not expected a living being to be hiding here, let alone one as extraordinary as Lyra. Lyra stayed a few steps behind him, watching every movement. Her luminous eyes reflected the dim light of the corridor. Glowing faintly as she followed, there was a quiet tension between them. The kind that forms when two beings are trying to understand each other for the first time. "Lyra," Elias said softly, breaking the silence. "I know this must be scary for you. But I promise, I only want to fix my ship. I won't hurt you." Lyra tilted her head, the translation device capturing her melodic words. "I must trust? Hard to trust humans." Elias nodded. He understood. Trust was earned, not given. And judging by the careful way she moved through the ship, she had learned that lesson the hard way. "I'll give you time," he said. "No sudden moves, no tricks, just time." She seemed to consider this, her eyes narrowing slightly. Then, in a voice the translator understood, she said, "Time. Yes. But danger. Everywhere." Elias's stomach tightened. He knew the galaxy could be dangerous, but he had never seen fear like hers. She had survived by hiding for years, navigating abandoned ships and avoiding predators, and now, for reasons she did not yet understand, she had stepped out of hiding. They moved together through the ship, approaching the central atrium, a large, open space with broken panels and a few scattered tools. Lyra paused near a wall, scanning the room. Elias noticed her posture tense, muscles coiled as if ready to flee. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. Lyra's voice trembled as she spoke. "Scouts. Sometimes. Come." Elias frowned. "Scouts?" She nodded, pointing toward the ship's windows. The void outside seemed calm, but he could see her fear. "There's a species," she explained slowly. "They destroyed my home. They watch, they hunt, I hide." Elias felt a pang of sympathy. He had heard stories of aggressive alien factions, but seeing the fear in her eyes made it personal. "You're safe here. For now," he said. "I won't let anything happen to you." Lyra studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she stepped closer, almost tentatively. The translator captured her words. "Perhaps we help each other." Elias smiled faintly. "Yes, perhaps we can." Their first steps toward cooperation were small. Elias showed her the spare part, explaining how it would repair his ship. Lyra listened intently, her fingers tracing the machinery, absorbing every detail. She was intelligent, curious, and careful, a perfect combination for survival. As they worked together, Elias noticed the alien's resourcefulness. She had adapted to life on the ship in ways he had not imagined. Simple tricks, like using old containers to store food and water, or fashioning small traps for scavenging supplies, showed her ingenuity. "You're clever," Elias said, impressed. "You've made this place livable." Lyra tilted her head, a faint glow in her eyes. The translator captured her words. "Necessary. To survive. Nothing else." Elias understood. Survival had been her only priority. and trust was a luxury she could not afford. Yet, despite the fear and isolation, she was curious about him, about humans, about the possibility of something beyond mere survival. As they moved toward the lower engine decks, a sudden vibration shook the ship. Warning lights flashed, and the metallic hum grew louder. Elias's heart raced. He had not expected any disturbances. "What is it?" Lyra asked, her voice tense. "Not sure. Stay close," Elias replied, reaching for his toolkit. He activated the scanners, his eyes scanning the holographic display. Outside, small drones, long abandoned like the ship itself, had reactivated. Their sensors detected movement inside the vessel, and they were programmed to eliminate intruders. Elias cursed under his breath. He had expected a simple retrieval mission, not a battle against automated defenses. Lyra's eyes widened, but she did not panic. Instead, she moved with a fluid grace, guiding Elias through hidden corridors and maintenance hatches. She knew the ship intimately, every secret passage, every blind spot. "Follow me," she whispered, her hand hovering near his shoulder. "They cannot see me." Elias followed, trusting her guidance. Together, they navigated the twisting corridors, avoiding the drone's scanning sensors. Lyra pointed out obstacles and safe zones, her knowledge of the ship turning the impossible task into a calculated risk. "Impressive," Elias said quietly, as they ducked behind a bulkhead. "You know this ship better than I do now." Lyra's lips curved slightly, a faint expression that resembled a smile. The translator captured her words. "Experience teaches everything." They reached the engine room again, heart rates high, adrenaline pumping. Elias quickly secured the spare part, fitting it into the machinery with precise movements. Lyra watched closely, occasionally offering her own insights. Her presence, once a source of fear, had become an asset. "Done," Elias said, finally. He leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "Now, let's get out of here before those drones realize we're still inside." Lyra nodded, her luminous eyes scanning the room. She moved with an elegance that made Elias realize how much she had survived on her own. She had not only endured isolation, but had learned to navigate dangers that would have overwhelmed most beings. As they retraced their steps, the tension between them shifted. What had started as fear was evolving into cautious trust. Lyra still flinched at sudden noises, but she followed Elias without hesitation. Elias, in turn, had begun to admire her resilience, intelligence, and adaptability. In the atrium, they paused for a moment. The void outside seemed calm again, but the echoes of the drone's presence lingered. Elias turned to Lyra. "You've been through a lot," he said, "but maybe we can help each other. Not just survive, but maybe thrive." Lyra's eyes glimmered. The translator captured her words. "Perhaps, with trust." Yes, for the first time, Elias saw a flicker of hope in her expression. The alien who had panicked at his arrival now seemed willing to consider the possibility of something beyond mere survival. They continued through the ship, encountering minor obstacles, collapsed panels, broken conduits, and small automated defenses, but together, they navigated each challenge. Elias guided the repairs, while Lyra used her knowledge of the ship's layout to keep them safe. By the time they reached the airlock, the bond between them had grown stronger. Elias realized that Lyra's presence was more than a complication, it was an opportunity. Her knowledge, her intelligence, and her survival skills could be invaluable. "You ready?" he asked, holding the spare part carefully. Lyra nodded. The translator captured her words. "Yes. Ready." Elias activated the airlock sequence. The outer door hissed open, revealing the black expanse of space. His ship, the Aurora's Edge, floated nearby, its hull glinting in the starlight. He maneuvered carefully, docking near the abandoned vessel. As they prepared to transfer the spare part, Elias glanced at Lyra. "You know, If you want, you could come with me. There's more out there than just hiding and surviving. Lyra looked at him, her luminous eyes reflecting the stars. The translator captured her words. More than survival? Possible? Yes, Elias said softly. More than survival. You could learn, explore, maybe even find a home where you're safe. Lyra's expression softened. For the first time, the fear in her eyes was replaced by curiosity, a spark of hope. Elias realized that trust was beginning to grow between them, a human and an alien, both alone in the galaxy, now standing together, ready to face whatever came next. The spare part was secured. The immediate danger passed. But their journey was far from over. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles of two beings inside a metal vessel. Yet, inside, something new had begun. The first true bond of trust and friendship between a human and an alien. And as they prepared to depart, neither Elias nor Lyra knew that this fragile alliance would soon be tested in ways neither could imagine. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but for now, a human and an alien had found common ground. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, their courage, intelligence, and trust as their greatest weapons. The cold void of space stretched endlessly beyond the viewport of the Aurora's edge. Stars glimmered like distant fireflies, each one a tiny beacon in the infinite darkness. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense, yet charged with a fragile sense of companionship. Elias and Lyra had successfully retrieved the spare part, but the galaxy had a way of reminding travelers that safety was temporary. Elias worked diligently at the engine console, installing the component he had risked so much to recover. The hum of machinery returned to its familiar rhythm, a sound that meant life and movement, not emptiness. Lyra watched closely, her luminous eyes tracing every wire, every panel. She had learned quickly, absorbing human technology with a mix of curiosity and careful attention. You know, Elias said, tightening a panel bolt. You really are good at this. I've been fixing engines for years. But you pick it up faster than anyone I've ever worked with. Lyra's lips curved faintly, almost like a smile. The translation device captured her words. Observation and necessity. Teach quickly. Elias chuckled softly. I suppose that makes sense. You've had plenty of practice surviving, haven't you? She nodded, the glow in her eyes dimming slightly. Survival. Often lonely, but necessary. For a long moment, they worked in silence. The only sounds were the soft hum of the engines and the occasional clink of tools. It was the kind of quiet that allowed trust to grow subtly, like a small flame kindled in a dark room. Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped urgently. Elias froze, scanning the readout. Movement, he muttered. Something's nearby. Lyra's body tensed immediately. Hunters, the device translated. Her voice trembled slightly. Elias's jaw tightened. We're not alone, he said. Stay close. And don't panic. We can handle this. He activated the ship's external cameras. On the display, a cluster of small, sleek scavenger drones glided through space toward them. They were old models, likely abandoned decades ago, but their AI remained functional. Programmed to neutralize intruders, they were dangerous, even if outdated. Lyra's eyes narrowed. We cannot fight like this? Traps? Elias nodded. Exactly. Follow my lead, and we'll use the ship to our advantage. He maneuvered the Aurora's edge closer to the abandoned cargo ship they had just left. Using its bulk as cover, they avoided the drone's scanning sensors. Lyra moved beside him, guiding him toward blind spots and weak points in the drone formation. Her knowledge of the old ship's structure proved invaluable. You know this ship better than I do now, Elias admitted, impressed by her precision. I wouldn't have survived this without you. Lyra's expression softened slightly. Experience teaches everything. The drones began scanning systematically, sweeping the area with faint blue lights. Elias realized their time was limited. One wrong move, and the drones would detect them. He adjusted the ship's trajectory, gliding silently behind a large asteroid. "Here," Lyra whispered, pointing to a narrow gap in the asteroid field. "They cannot follow here easily." Elias nodded, following her suggestion. The ship slipped through the gap, and the drone's lights swept past harmlessly. He exhaled slowly, feeling a rush of relief. "That was close," he muttered. Lyra's luminous eyes met his. Close, too close, but managed. They continued navigating the asteroid field, moving cautiously but steadily. Elias could see that Lyra's instincts were sharp. Her ability to anticipate danger had saved them multiple times. He began to understand that survival in the galaxy required more than technology. It required awareness, adaptability, and intelligence. Lyra had all three in abundance. Hours passed as they maneuvered through the hazardous environment. The tension between them began to ease slightly, replaced by a shared focus on survival. Elias taught Lyra how to operate some of the ship's controls, while she offered strategies for evading threats. They worked in tandem, a human and an alien, learning from each other with quiet efficiency. At one point, the ship passed near a derelict space station, its hull pockmarked with the scars of age and neglect. Lyra's eyes glimmered as she observed it. "Many survive here?" Elias shook his head. "Not anymore. Most of this sector has been abandoned for decades. Only scavengers like us roam these parts." Lyra nodded, the translator capturing her words. "Yet, knowledge can be found here." Curious, she guided Elias toward the station. Its corridors were dark, and some parts had collapsed entirely. But her intuition led them safely inside. They explored carefully, collecting useful supplies and examining the technology left behind. Lyra seemed to know instinctively what could be valuable, what could be dangerous. As they worked, Elias began to ask her questions about her past. "Where did you come from? What happened to your home?" He wanted to understand her story, not just the present danger. Lyra's eyes darkened, her glow dimming slightly. "Home. Destroyed. Many lost. Hunted. I ran." Her voice trembled. "Alone. Hiding. Afraid." Elias felt a pang of guilt and sympathy. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I can't imagine what that must have been like. But you don't have to be alone anymore. Not if you don't want to be." Lyra looked at him, studying his face. For a moment, she seemed unsure. Then, softly, she said, "Perhaps. Trust. Possible." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Trust was fragile, especially after years of isolation and fear. Yet here she was, choosing to work with him, choosing to survive together. Their quiet moment was broken by a sudden alert. Sensors detected an approaching ship. Larger, faster, and far more advanced than the scavenger drones. Elias frowned. "We've got company," he muttered, "and they're not friendly." Lyra's body tensed immediately. "Hunters. Real ones." Elias guided the Aurora's edge toward a nearby asteroid cluster, hoping to use the terrain for cover. Lyra pointed out narrow passages and blind spots, predicting the enemy ship's movements with uncanny accuracy. Together, they avoided detection for the moment, but they knew they couldn't remain hidden forever. "Listen," Elias said, lowering his voice. "We can't fight them head-on. We'll have to be smart, use the environment, and strike when the moment is right." Lyra nodded, her luminous eyes reflecting the dim light of the cockpit. "Strategy. Yes. Use mind, not strength." They waited, tense and silent, as the enemy ship swept past the asteroid cluster. Elias watched the readouts carefully, noting the patterns in the ship's movement. Lyra guided him through a series of maneuvers, exploiting the gaps in the enemy's sensors. Finally, an opportunity presented itself. A narrow canyon of asteroids created a blind spot, and Elias steered the ship through it with precision. Lyra pointed out the exact moment to cut the engines briefly, allowing the ship to slip silently past the enemy. The maneuver was risky, but it worked. As they emerged on the other side, Elias let out a long breath. "We made it," he said, relief evident in his voice. Lyra's lips curved slightly, a faint glow returning to her eyes. Together, survived. Elias realized how much he had come to rely on her instincts, knowledge, and courage. This alien, who had once panicked at his arrival, had become a partner in survival, and he knew that the bond between them, fragile as it was, could grow into something stronger. The Aurora's Edge continued on its journey, traveling through the asteroid field and deeper into uncharted space. Elias repaired minor systems as they moved, while Lyra assisted. Learning quickly, they shared small victories, a successful maneuver, a clever repair, a safe passage through dangerous debris. Each success strengthened their trust and teamwork. At one point, Elias looked at Lyra and smiled faintly. "You know, you'd make a great engineer, or a pilot. You've got the instincts for it, and the brains to back it up." Lyra tilted her head, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the ship's console. The translator captured her words. "Perhaps, but survival first. Then, more." Elias nodded. "Exactly. First, we survive. Then we figure out what's next." As night fell over the ship, though night in space was just the absence of light, the two of them sat quietly, side by side in the cockpit. The stars outside continued to shine, distant and indifferent, but inside the Aurora's Edge, a human and an alien had formed a partnership, one born out of necessity, yes, but also out of understanding, respect, and the first glimmer of trust. Lyra glanced at Elias, her luminous eyes curious. "What is beyond this? Danger?" Elias smiled faintly, gazing at the stars. "Possibilities," he said softly. "Safety, adventure, maybe even a place where we both belong." For now, they had survived together. And in a galaxy filled with dangers, that was no small achievement. But Elias knew the challenges were far from over. The scavengers and hunters of the void were only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown threats, and full of opportunities. And with Lyra by his side, he felt a cautious optimism. They could face whatever came next, together. And so, with engines humming and the stars stretching endlessly ahead, human and alien continued their journey, ready for the trials and adventures the universe had in store. The Aurora's Edge floated quietly through the vast emptiness of space, the stars stretching endlessly in every direction. Inside the cockpit, the hum of the engines was steady and reassuring, a stark contrast to the chaos they had faced earlier. Elias Rourke leaned back in his seat, rubbing his tired eyes. Beside him, Lyra sat silently, her luminous eyes reflecting the faint light from the control panels. For the first time since their encounter, there was a moment of calm. The immediate danger of scavenger drones and enemy ships had passed, leaving only the hum of the engines and the vast silence of the void. Yet Elias knew better than to assume safety was permanent. The galaxy was unpredictable, and peace was always temporary. "Lyra," Elias began, breaking the quiet. "We've survived a lot together. You've been incredible out there." Lyra's eyes glimmered faintly, a soft glow illuminating her delicate features. The translator captured her words. "I learned from you. Humans. Adaptable." Elias smiled faintly. "And you've taught me something too. That survival isn't just about strength or speed. It's about knowing when to move, when to wait, and who to trust." She tilted her head, studying him. Trust. Rare. Yet possible. For a long moment, they sat in silence, reflecting on the journey that had brought them together. Elias thought of the abandoned ship, the lonely corridors where he had first encountered her, and the moments of fear that had turned into cautious understanding. He realized that Lyra's presence had changed something within him. The galaxy no longer felt entirely empty. There was connection. And for the first time in a long while, hope. The ship's sensors beeped suddenly, breaking the quiet. Elias glanced at the display and frowned. A nearby planet appeared on the readout, its atmosphere stable and resources abundant. It was a human settlement, a place where travelers and explorers could rest, trade, and repair their ships safely. "This is it," Elias said, excitement and relief mingling in his voice. "We're close to safety. And more than that, a place where you might find a home." Lyra's eyes widened slightly, the glow intensifying. "Home. Possible," she repeated softly, as if tasting the word for the first time in years. Elias adjusted the ship's trajectory, preparing for the descent. He could see the settlement growing larger on the display, a cluster of domed structures, landing pads, and supply stations. The thought of introducing Lyra to other humans filled him with a mix of hope and caution. He knew that some humans might be wary of her, perhaps even afraid. But he also knew that many would see her as he did. Intelligent, resourceful, and capable of greatness. As they approached the planet, Elias explained the plan. "We'll land on the outer pad first. It's safer, quieter. Once we're on the ground, you can see the settlement, meet some of the people there. I'll be with you the whole time." Lyra nodded, her fingers brushing against the edge of the console. Guidance. Appreciated. The landing was smooth, the engines of the Aurora's Edge humming steadily as they descended through the atmosphere. Elias guided the ship carefully, navigating through clouds and turbulence. Lyra's eyes scanned the landscape below, absorbing the details, the sprawling city, the greenery surrounding the domed habitats, and the faint glimmer of sunlight reflecting off metallic surfaces. "This, different," she murmured, her voice full of awe. Elias nodded. "Yes, it's a place where people can live, learn, and work together. You could be part of it too, if you want." As the ship touched down on the landing pad, a small group of humans approached. Alerted by the docking signal, Elias stepped forward to greet them, and they exchanged brief words about the ship's condition and the retrieval mission. Then, he gestured toward Lyra. "This is Lyra," he said simply. "She's new here. I'd like her to see the settlement safely." The humans hesitated at first, unsure how to react. Lyra's appearance was unlike anything they had seen, and her luminous skin and glowing eyes were striking. But Elias stood firmly, his presence calm and confident. He trusted her, and that trust extended to these humans. Lyra took a cautious step forward, her eyes scanning the new faces. The translator captured her quiet words. Strangers, yet not hostile. One of the humans, a woman with short brown hair and a friendly smile, stepped closer. "Hello," she said softly. "Welcome. Don't worry. You're safe here." Lyra tilted her head, studying the woman's expression. There was kindness there, an absence of fear. Slowly, she nodded. "Safe. Here. Perhaps." Elias smiled. "See? Not everyone is a threat. You can trust some people. And here, you can learn, explore, maybe even find a purpose beyond just survival." Lyra's eyes softened, her glow dimming slightly in relief. Purpose, beyond survival, possible. As they walked through the settlement, Elias introduced Lyra to basic systems, shared her story carefully, and allowed her to observe without forcing interaction. The settlement was full of activity, people repairing ships, trading supplies, teaching, and learning. Lyra's eyes widened with curiosity and fascination. She had survived in isolation for so long that the vibrancy of life here was overwhelming but invigorating. Elias led her to a small workshop, a place where travelers could learn and work on their ships. He handed her a toolkit, showing her how to handle some of the basic machinery. Lyra's fingers moved gracefully over the tools, her movements precise and careful. She was a quick learner, absorbing every detail as if it were instinct. "You're a natural," Elias said, impressed. "I think you could do great things here, Lyra." She glanced at him, a faint smile appearing on her face. The translator captured her words. Great things. Maybe. Possible. With trust. They spent the next few hours exploring the settlement, meeting a few cautious but kind humans, and learning the basic routines of life on the planet. Lyra observed everything with wide-eyed curiosity, asking questions through the translator device. She was fascinated by human culture, technology, and the sense of community that thrived here. By evening, they returned to the workshop. Elias had secured a small room for Lyra, allowing her space to rest and adjust. He set up basic amenities, food, water, and a small sleeping area. Lyra looked around, her luminous eyes reflecting gratitude and wonder. Thank you, she said softly. Comfort? Appreciated. Elias smiled. You don't have to thank me. You've earned this. You've survived, adapted, and learned. Now, it's time to see what else the galaxy has to offer. Lyra nodded, her glow soft and steady. Galaxy. Possibilities. New life. That night, as Elias watched over the settlement from the workshop window, he reflected on their journey. What had begun as a simple mission to retrieve a spare part had turned into something far more significant. He had encountered an alien being, one who had survived unimaginable hardships, and together they had faced dangers, built trust, and discovered the beginnings of friendship. He knew the future held challenges. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown threats and opportunities. But Elias felt a cautious optimism. With Lyra by his side, he believed they could face whatever came next. They had survived together, learned from each other, and grown stronger. And now, the possibilities stretched out before them like the endless stars. The next morning, Elias and Lyra returned to the Aurora's edge. The ship had been repaired, and it was ready for new journeys. Elias handed her a small toolkit, showing her how to maintain the engines and basic systems. Lyra's hands moved deftly, following his instructions with precision. You're ready, Elias said finally. Not just for survival, but for everything else. For exploring, learning, maybe even teaching others what you know. Lyra's eyes glimmered brightly. Ready for new beginnings. Together, they left the landing pad, the Aurora's edge gliding smoothly into space. The settlement grew smaller behind them, a bright cluster of life and hope. Ahead lay the unknown, uncharted systems, distant stars, and countless opportunities for discovery. Elias adjusted the ship's course, heading toward the nearest unexplored sector. Lyra observed the stars, her eyes filled with wonder and anticipation. Where to first? She asked softly. Elias smiled. Anywhere. Everywhere. The galaxy is ours to explore. Lyra nodded, her glow steady and confident. Galaxy. Ours. Together. As the Aurora's edge accelerated into the starlit void, Elias realized something profound. Humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and curiosity had not only ensured his survival but had created a bond that transcended worlds. And in Lyra, he had found not just an ally, but a friend, a being capable of great intelligence, courage, and hope. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, each one a reminder of the vastness of space and the endless possibilities it held. Together, human and alien moved forward, ready to face the unknown. And for the first time in a long while, Elias felt that the galaxy was not a lonely place. It was a place of connection, trust, and new beginnings.